Welcome back to the She Thrives Influential Women podcast. I am your host, Lori Murphy, and I am an empowerment coach for women, an award-winning published co-author, public speaker, as well as columnist for the Rochester Women's Online magazine. It is so good to have you all here with me today. And if you are new to this podcast, please do not forget to hit the subscribe button so that you never miss another episode. This podcast is here to bring positive influence into women's lives all across the world, to bring them health and wellness suggestions or, empowering stories from other women, sharing how they've navigated through their challenges and tribulations to be able to thrive in their lives. This is a community for women to come and feel supported. I do have a free online Facebook community called She Thrives Together. The link is in the description of the podcast. Click that link. Do not hesitate to request to join the community. Women, we have to stick together, and I am so happy to be able to provide this for all of you. Today, I have an amazing guest. I am so excited to have Chelsey here with us. Chelsey is a woman that I met recently. Her name is Chelsey Jersak. She is a visionary in urban planning and a powerful advocate for people first solutions. She has successfully championed policy changes, including expanding housing access through Alberta's Human Rights Act, and founded Situate, a company dedicated to strategic and municipal planning. Chelsey's work challenges outdated regulations and reimagines community building to reflect how peoples actually live, not just idealized models. She is thrilled to be here today, and I am thrilled to bring her on. Chelsey, how are you this morning?
I'm great, Lori. How are you? Thank you so much for having me on your show.
Yes, I'm excited to have you. So tell us a little bit about who you are and where you're from. And
Absolutely. Well, as you know, my name's Chelsey. I'm an urban planner by training and by trade. So not a lot of people know what urban planning is necessarily. So I'll give a quick overview because it's a really neat career pathway. Um, Urban planners are the people that sort of help set the rules for how cities grow and change and evolve over time.
Mhm.
So urban planners are sort of the people that are the gatekeepers for new developments. So they check new building applications against the rules, and then they also help to create those rules. So they help to create where things can be built, how big a building can be, you know, how high it can be, how many stories it can have, and then what can take place inside of it. So zoning is kind of some of the hidden rules that impact our daily lives very much, like
Mhm.
where the grocery store in our neighborhood can be located. Will be determined by zoning rules. Where the school is
Mhm.
located will be determined by zoning rules. How big your house can be often is determined by zoning rules, and how many residential homes or units can exist on a lot will also be determined by zoning. So a lot of these things that we sort of take for granted and don't really think about, there's urban planners behind all of that. So it's a really interesting kind of real world exercise in SimCity, in a way, that sort of game, that city building game that we used to play as kids.
That's amazing. Now, what drew you to this career path?
Hmm. Well, when I started, I was really interested in archaeology, actually, and that was because I was really interested in humans and the way we settle and we come together. So I was really interested in studying human civilization, and more specifically, how when we gather together and we settle together, what that looks like, what that feels like, was really interesting to me. So when I was in university, I started studying archaeology, and I went on a trip to Mexico City, actually.
Mhm.
And there's some really interesting ruins inside the city as well as outside of the city. And I visited the ones outside the city They're called Teotihuacan, and it's a really fascinating civilization that nobody really knows much about. This was like these were ancient ruins at the time of the Aztecs.
Mm.
So they're sort of a mysterious civilization that we make a lot of guesses about. Interesting place. Highly recommend a visit. And I went there, and I was, you know, really fascinated by it. But I was staying in Mexico City, and I found the juxtaposition of, sort of like the old archaeological site juxtaposed with like the very urban, vibrant, livable, um, busy, colorful city to be obviously very apparent. And what
Hmm.
I realized is that I was really, really interested in the vibrant, urban living Mexico City. And so I had a bit of an awakening where I thought to myself, okay, obviously there's a connection here. I'm interested in both. But
Hmm.
what's really captivating me is, the people on the street, the music, the color, all of the things that kind of make a city come alive was really interesting to me. And so I changed career paths. I changed my area of study from archaeology to city planning because of this.
Yeah, that's incredible. Now, how old were you when you started navigating? Because you own your own, this is your own baby, right? Like
I
you've
do,
built this up
yes.
from the ground. So what drew you to starting your own business, and how old were you when you started to have that desire?
If that's a that's a really great question. I was in my mid 30s when I made the career switch. So basically, I had worked for government prior to that for about 7 years, and
Mm,
I my husband took a job abroad actually when I was in my mid 30s, and I went along with him, and that provided me with a break. Um, and during that time, I had some time to reflect, and I realized that I wasn't necessarily on the track that I wanted to stay on for the rest of my career.
hmm.
So that space gave me the time and mental clarity, I would say, to think about what would come next. And Situate was born at that time. Sort of the idea germinated. And when we came back to Canada, my business is based in Western Canada.
Hmm.
Um, I, I started. I decided to start, and I had no entrepreneurial experience. Like I didn't. This hadn't been. I didn't see it coming in my career, to be honest with you.
Right.
It came slowly, and I thought at the time, I'll try, and if it doesn't work out, I can always go back and get another job, and
Right.
that for me lowered the pressure. It made the stakes feel, a little bit lower, and it felt like, okay, if in a year this doesn't take off, then there's always exit strategies.
Hmm.
So I decided to start. I didn't have a roadmap. I was a technical expert. Like I knew what I knew with urban planning, and I knew how to write zoning regulations and all of these sorts of fun and sort of boring but fun things. So it was definitely has been a process over time, but that's how it started.
Yeah. I can kind of relate to that with my own journey. So a part of me was always kind of called to something more um self-employed, right? Or when I hit into some time point in adulthood, I kind of had this desire for my own thing, but I really had no idea how. And it took me up until I was in my late 30s to hear my calling to do the work that I'm doing now. But I can say that I had zero knowledge on business building or roadmaps and strategies. I just knew I had this desire to try something, and just kind of I've learned a lot along the way, but led with that, right? Like it's like, okay, well, this
Hmm.
is this is something I want to do. And like you, I'm like, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. I still have my career of 20 something years in dentistry to fall back on,
Hmm.
you know?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
it's like you said, you can always revert back, but what was your why to keep going?
Yeah. I mean, the why question is a great question. For me, I mean, I can answer this in a couple of ways. Technically speaking, I really love cities and city building and shaping how they evolve. And I think that the way that we shape our cities and the way that we live in our cities really plays a huge role and an underestimated role in our quality of life, just like our
Mhm.
social well-being, our emotional well-being, our physical well-being. And so I think that the way that cities, that we've chosen to build cities over the last, half century, three-quarters of a century, since maybe the mid 1900s, like from the 1950s onwards, has been very, very much about separating things from each other. Putting the grocery store, on one side of a neighborhood, and all of the commercial stuff in another part of the neighborhood, and then all of the housing somewhere else. So we have to drive everywhere, and we
Yeah.
don't run into each other, so much the way that maybe people used to do when they were walking down the street
Mhm.
to pick up that jug of milk. And so we've sort of created a city where we're sort of disconnected. And so I think
Mhm.
for me, my big why about like why I do this work and why I started a business to support these sorts of projects that um, add vibrancy into the urban fabric is because I really think that it's about people. It's about making our lives better, easier, more accessible, giving us more options for transportation, more housing options. I think, most of us, many of us live in, houses. Lots of us aspire to live in a house, but it's not the right fit necessarily for everyone, and not we don't always have a lot of other options available. And so for me, I'm really passionate about, looking at those problems and figuring out, okay, how can we actually solve them? How can we think about this differently through the built form? Not everyone anymore is, a two-parent family with two kids and a dog. That was a more typical family structure,
Mhm.
um, you know a couple of generations ago, but now there's a lot more variety. But our housing stock, the way that we build our homes, hasn't necessarily caught up. So I'm really, really interested in all of these sorts of I would say opportunities that we have in front of us. Like, we have changed, like our society has changed. Have our cities caught up? I think we're in that process.
Yeah, I love that. You have an amazing why behind what why you do what you do. And you can tell when you talk about it, you light up, like you are passionate about this. And, one of the things that I loved about like when I was reading your bio is how, you reflect on how people actually live, right?
Hmm.
Rather than some, idealization of models. So you actually really are getting in touch with what people need, what aligns with their lifestyles, and not just, okay, well, this looks nice and it goes well here. So we're just gonna throw it in there. So what is your method behind all of that?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I would say that we're the implementers, we're the doers. So any given city or municipality will sort of have a vision or a long range plan, or sometimes it's called a municipal development plan. It goes by different words, different terms are used for these sorts of things, but it's like the strategic plan of the city. Like, okay, we want the things over here, and we want to like do this and not do that, and like create a park over here, etc. So a lot of urban planners are involved in that kind of work. The work that we do at Situate, it's taking that broad vision that's been set out in Edmonton, in the city that we work in most regularly. It's called City Plan. And so what we do is we take those like visionary statements or those policy statements, and we implement them through the zoning bylaws. So we say, okay, well, the grand vision said that this roadway is going to redevelop over time into a mixed use street. Right now it's just a thoroughfare that cars are driving down really, really fast. In 10,
Mhm.
20, 30 years, we'd like there to be, more buildings there, We'd like there to be maybe some trees on the street, and we'd like there to be more housing. And so we're the people that are like, okay, let's make that happen. Let's like take that, picture that's been painted for us, and let's like roll up our sleeves and do the work to make it happen. So
Hmm.
often what that means is, of course, there will be a real estate transaction. Someone will buy a parcel of land, they'll come to us, and hire us to help them figure out like, what's possible there. So in terms of like, what is the strategy? What's
Hmm.
possible for me to do here? And does it fit with the vision that I have? So we start there. And then we go through an approvals process to say, okay, the framework here calls for maybe a 6-story building with commercial on the main floor. Now
Hmm.
we need to find a zone and rezone the land to that zone so that you have the approval that you need to move forward with actually building a building. So it's a process. The city planning process starts with these sort of high level visions or strategic plans as they apply to a city, and then they're implemented through zoning. And we work a lot with zoning, and then development permits. So basically, everything has to be permitted by the city, like stamped up. A piece of paper needs to be stamped up, like literally, um, and then and then things get built. And this is how it evolves over time. And it's really, we don't pay a lot of attention to this process, but it's happening around us all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, because honestly, when I'm sitting here and I'm listening to you and all of the behind the scenes, like little nuances and the things that go into zoning and building and creating. There is a lot more to it than okay, like because from my standpoint, I see a building going up. I just see a building going up and something that's being developed, and I don't think about the work that you do as an urban planner and all of the things that go into that because it's there's a lot of detail and you have to have a real good like attention to detail and focus on
Mm-hmm.
to be able to create these, cities, roads, build, businesses, all the things. And I find it very fascinating. And so you
Mm-hmm.
started off as an architect and then you made this switch into urban planning and started your own business. So I kind of want to backtrack just a little bit on starting your business because I mean, I know for me, I have had to navigate through a lot of hurdles and roadblocks and moments of, discouragement. Have you found that you had those types of things along the way as well, especially in the beginning process of it?
Definitely. I'll just say one thing. I actually never studied architecture, although I did.
Oh,
I did study archaeology. So same, slightly different. Very much both interested in buildings,
mm,
but in a different way.
sure.
My business journey, definitely starting it was. I mean, it's funny to me now looking back. I didn't know how to price things. I underpriced everything. I didn't know what to charge. I didn't understand the value of what I was bringing to the table. I had to figure out even what to offer to people, because
Hmm.
what my first offer, what I thought it was going to be, ultimately wasn't what we ended up sort of providing to people. It wasn't the problem that people needed solved. And
Hmm.
I think that happens a lot when you're starting a business. We start with an idea. Of course, there's something that we're going to do, some service that we're going to deliver, some problem that we're going to solve. And then very quickly, what I realized is that the problem that I was out to solve was not the problem. It was not the real problem. There was a different problem.
Yeah.
And, I remember distinctly a conversation I had with someone who came and was like, I need you to help me with this. I need you to help me figure out what I can do on this property that I own. And nowadays, we do this all the time. We do this every day. But then I was just starting out and I was like, oh, I don't do that. Like, that's not what I do. I
Hmm.
do this other thing. Like, I'm interested in economic development or, something like this.
Yeah.
And so I quickly learned the importance of like really listening, like really listening to what people say
Hmm.
and the needs that they're expressing, that they might be expressing consciously and in words, or they might be expressing just through what they're not saying. And so I think having tuned into that really helped me steer my way through the initial, and I would say a few years of really figuring things out. I had to figure out, also how to hire people, how to, you know, grow, be sustainable, all of these things that we have to figure out. Eventually I did figure out, but it was a process of trial and error very much.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I can relate to, especially when it comes to, the charging, right? Like what is the right way to navigate that? Because I think that a lot of us as new entrepreneurs coming into something aren't really sure what we're bringing to the table, what value it is that we're actually giving. And so I mean, I've heard it before, and I know that even for me, it was significantly undervaluing myself and the work that I'm doing because we're not. I don't think we go into it. It does. It starts off as an idea, and we're not really going into it with that understanding of the value, right? Because your
Mhm.
work, in a lot of ways, does change lives, right?
Absolutely. And when it comes to real estate development, um, this, there's a lot of money being invested. So people are using their own personal money. It's like it's a small business. Like I am an entrepreneur, and a lot of the people that I work with, the builders, the developers, the investors, etc., are entrepreneurs as well. So I
Hmm.
feel, lucky to be in a position where I can support other entrepreneurial folks who are running small and medium sized businesses that are ultimately doing this work to make our city better. I think I feel really really lucky about that.
Sure. Now,
Yeah.
would you say the industry that you're in now, because I do have another question leading up to this. Do you find that it's more male dominated, or is it a lot of, females also doing the work that you're doing?
It's safe to say, I would say, that it's male dominated. So most folks that are actively involved or making the decisions in real estate tend to be men. I would say most of our clients are men. Yeah, certainly 9.5 out of 10
Yeah,
are men.
sure.
In the on the like serving the real estate industry, so people like ourselves, like urban planners, architects, etc., I would say
Mhm.
there's more women. But in terms of real estate developers, the people that are like putting the project together, getting the money together, getting the financing, making the decisions, typically men.
Right.
So I think there's a real opportunity, and I think there's actually a real need for more women to learn about real estate,
Hmm.
learn about real estate development, and even to start doing it themselves.
Yeah.
I think there's a real opportunity because women live in the city and experience the city differently.
Hmm.
I think we have a different lens. We do different things sometimes at different times of day. We're looking at things differently. So I think having more women in those decision making roles could have a really positive impact on how our cities evolve over time. And I'm very passionate about that.
Yeah. And the reason I ask that is because I feel like there are a lot of women, especially women listening to the podcast, that might find themselves in those types of situations where they're in a male-dominated industry and may have hurdles that they've had to overcome or have come face to face with the realization that, you're in that situation of male dominated industries. So I guess my question is have you ever had an experience that you found that you had more of a challenge being a woman in your industry?
I would say for me personally, there are no acute experiences where I would say this thing happened, and it was very clear cut. Do you know what
Hmm.
I mean? I think
Right.
sometimes There are examples that are very obvious, and
Hmm.
then there is just the way that our society is structured that we are navigating every day, you
Yeah.
know? And
Yep.
so I think it's really interesting why, like, why are there so many men in real estate development? Why are they the ones? And um, I think it's actually an interesting phenomenon where women typically think through the risks a little bit more comprehensively about many things than men do. I'm generalizing here. But when you look at small children, even on the playground, you can see typically, the male ones are um, often a little wilder and crazier, and the female ones are sort of taking care of themselves and
Yeah.
probably less likely to come home bleeding to a certain extent. And so, I think this also shows up as adults in real estate too, where like men typically are out there taking the risks, making the decisions, and potentially reaping the rewards as well.
Mhm.
Whereas women, I think we're potentially a little more cautious when it comes to our money, how we're investing it, where we're putting it.
Yes.
Is it safe there? And I think that, these are just like very general tendencies and like general
Mhm.
statements that I'm making. But certainly it is what I notice. And so I think there is an opportunity for like cautious and conscious investing in real estate. And I
Mhm.
think I think it doesn't have to be all rogue and breakneck, and you're putting your money somewhere you don't understand what's going to happen with it. So, one thing that I would really love to see is just generally more regular people investing in real estate, because I think this is how we over time build the sorts of cities that best serve us,
Mhm.
as well as women getting more involved in real estate development as well. And I speak about this because these are the clients that we serve, or the people that are going out and doing stuff.
Mhm.
And that might just be building a duplex on a lot.
Right.
And maybe you live in one side and you rent the other side, or your adult children live there, or your elderly parents live there.
Mhm.
So, there's lots of really fun and interesting ways that we can structure our lives that are mediated through the buildings that we live in. And we often don't think that we have options, but we really do.
Yeah. Now, I wanted, because I remember one of the things that we talked about before we actually started the podcast is, so you live essentially part-time in New Mexico and then the other part in Alberta. Now, would you find that with the business you're in, do you know you do projects for both places, New Mexico, Alberta, or do you just primarily solely focus on one area?
Yeah, interestingly, I live part of the time in Mexico City, actually.
Oh,
So in
Mexico
in,
City,
in
excuse
Mexico,
me.
yeah. And then my business is based in Edmonton, Alberta, and so my team is based in Edmonton, and I work remotely. So I sort of have a hybrid remote um, work
Hmm.
and team. So I manage the business mostly remotely, and our work is based in Canada. So that's an interesting development. I would say I've been in Mexico. This is because of my husband's job. His job is based there, so we are living there right now. Something that COVID, I would say, made possible. I don't know that running a business remotely pre-COVID would have been, you know, people probably would have wondered about that, or, asked a lot more questions. But, now these days, um, at first I kind of wondered, I was like, is this something, can I really do this? Like, is this possible? But it absolutely is. So, I can happily say that I've been running my business remotely for 3 years now. And
That's awesome.
we've been doing really well.
That's fantastic. So, has there been a time where you had to, so I imagine because you had to obviously adjust to being remote, right? What was there ever a time where it was extremely challenging to get used to transitioning to more remote rather than being there on site?
For me, it wasn't. I think what I appreciate about it is when I am physically present, I have a much greater tendency to micromanage, to join in on meetings that I don't need to be in, take part in conversations that I don't necessarily need to be in. And I think this is very easy to do as the entrepreneur, as the business owner, is to sort of swoop in and solve the problems. I see a problem, I solve it. That's what I'm good at doing. That's why I started the business in the first place. So having the physical distance really has allowed me to focus more on working on the business instead of working in the business, and focus on strategy and the larger picture rather than sort of getting pulled in. So I don't know that it would work for everyone, and everyone of course has a different personality and a different team that you're working with. But for me, it's been, I think, perhaps unexpectedly, a really positive thing for my business for me to have a little bit of distance from the day to day. Because I
Yeah.
think as business owners, we know that we need that. We know that we need to take the space, and we know that we need, that day every, you know, week or month to just step back and reflect or think about strategy. But it's really, really hard to find the time, right? There's always other things
Hmm.
that come up that are urgent or seem urgent, that it's easy that for the calendar to be overtaken. So I have found that that distance for me has really helped me keep that mental clarity.
Yeah. It's got to kind of also relieve a lot of unnecessary stress, especially
Yes.
knowing that you have a team that is getting the job done
Hmm.
and being effective and efficient. So it you have the right people in your corner, which is definitely helpful in making sure that the success of the business continues on.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that's huge because you I would say so I don't have a staff, but I feel like when I get to a point where I might start navigating having staff to help keep things afloat, you really have to make sure and know that you can trust and depend on the people that you're bringing on, to make sure
Yeah.
that because they have to love this just as much as you do. And it sounds like that you're very fortunate in that regard.
Yes, I really am. I have a great team, and it took some time to get there. There was some. I was a solopreneur for years, and then I didn't have a lot of confidence in hiring. Um, but what I learned through trial and error and through experience, and a really wise piece of advice that I got from a more experienced business owner along the way, is hire the most expensive people that you possibly can. Just like bring in the most expensive, most experienced people. That's really hard as a solopreneur, or as
Yeah.
someone just starting a business. Like it feels it feels big. It feels risky. It's like, well, what if I don't have the cash flow? What do I like? Obviously, what do I do? Like, I don't want to be in a position of not being able to pay that person or pay myself, etc. Um, but for me, it was important to like feel that fear,
Hmm.
and then also move through it.
Yeah.
And hiring experienced people it was just a game changer. It was a game changer for me. It actually allowed me to take that space and focus on the business instead of being in the business all the time every day. And so it's absolutely an investment that is worth it, that I would share that advice with anyone, to hire the most expensive person, that you can afford, and then don't look back. I
I love
mean,
that.
yeah, you're investing in your business.
Yeah.
It's a really important investment in your business.
I love that. And I think that is solid advice that I will certainly be carrying forward with me when it comes to a point. Because I feel like when you get to a point where you need to start bringing on other hands to be able to delegate responsibilities, to keep the flow going, and to continue the growth and success of something that you started, that says that you've really achieved the goal, right? You've really worked hard to make this dream now the reality, and now you're at a point where you have to be able, because it's getting to be too much, right? Like it's grown so much that you have to start delegating, and you want to make sure that you are investing into the right team,
Hmm.
right? Because they got to have the same vision.
They do, yeah. They have to get it and want it as well. So that values alignment is really important, and
Yeah.
I learned that also through trial and error.
Yeah,
But now, yeah, you definitely values alignment is probably the most important thing.
sure. Now, for somebody who might be starting out in business in general or even in urban planning, they're over here and they want to start out and they might be hesitating, or they've already started and they're in a place of a lot of self-doubt. What type of advice can you give them to encourage them to move forward?
I think, what I would say is that self doubt is normal and it's okay. I think that we sometimes resist these feelings that come up, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm an imposter. Like, oh my goodness. Like,
Oh yeah.
all of like the inner voice thoughts. It's okay. I think to a certain extent we just have to be like it's happening again, but that's not who I am. Like there's space between me and that voice. And so taking a little bit of distance just through that awareness, like that mindfulness practice of like, there's the voice, and name the voice and be like, there's Myrtle again. And like Myrtle is that friendly grandma in my head that's like trying to keep me safe.
Yes.
But I'm like, hey Myrtle, like I got this. Like I can I can do this. But thank you for trying to keep me safe. So I think just like making friends with those voices is important, because I
I
don't think
love
they're out
that.
there to hurt us. I think they're out there to like help us in their way, help
Yeah.
us to the best of their ability. And most of us didn't grow up with those encouraging voices to be like, go out there, take a risk, see what you can do, like start that business. Like it's
Yeah.
okay if you fail. I didn't grow up with those messages.
Right.
And so we kind of have to give them to ourselves,
Mhm.
but the voices in our head are probably telling us something different. So we just have to be like, okay, like I get it, and thank you. Like I
Yeah.
I, I understand that you're trying to help me, but I don't need your help right now.
Yeah. I
so
love
so that's
this.
important. Yeah.
Like, and that's something that I personally have forget, and I haven't, and that's like a whole new insight, like becoming friends with the voices in your head. And I love that you gave it a name and you give it that attention and love and grace, and just be like, thank you for that. But, and being able to acknowledge it and find ways to navigate through it. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. That's powerful.
Okay, I'm
So,
glad.
now, Chelsey, if somebody wanted to reach you to inquire more information, to learn more about urban planning and ways of getting themselves into that line of work, how can they reach you?
Yeah, I would say check out our webpage. So our webpage is situateinc.ca. And on the webpage, there is an email address that will come to me. It's hello@situateinc.ca. I'm also pretty active on LinkedIn, so that's a great place to find me as well and reach me, Chelsey Jersak. So I would say either of those two methods, I am very happy to encourage city planning as a career choice in general, and also happy to encourage folks who are starting a business, or who are looking to scale up. I think having a community of entrepreneurs and like female business owners and just doers, movers and shakers in general is so important. So
Absolutely.
yeah, please
Absolutely.
feel
Very
free.
good. Well,
Hmm.
thank you so much for taking the time to join us today and telling us about urban planning and educating us on all of the ins and outs and, your journey and navigating through the, entrepreneurial journey. I'm so happy that you came on today.
Thank you so much for having me, Lori. It was a great
Abs
chat.
Absolutely. And if anybody is out there and I can be of support to you along the way in your journey, please feel free to contact me. My information will also be in the description of this podcast along with Chelsea's. You can reach me. I'm active on Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, and my website is a great resource, www.lorimurphycoaching.com. And I'm looking forward to seeing you all next time. Until then, let go of fear and let your spirit shine.